Alright, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, is the Mass Reviewer back again with another review, and today we are doing a review for Spirit Untamed, I think it's kind of a sequel to, it's not really a sequel to the original Spirit movie, and yeah, this is in preparation for a comparison which I'm going to be doing after this recording, and I'll just give a bit of background. I guess I went into the first Spirit movie with pretty low expectations, and I was actually pretty surprised. It wasn't like a great film or anything, but I ended up giving it a 5.5. I did think that it was decent, so I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised going into it. Out of all the DreamWorks films, this one, it's one I, like, the original Spirit film, it was one that I had never seen before, and out of all the DreamWorks films, it did look to be, honestly, the most boring one, and I was happy that I was, like, pleasantly surprised with how that film turned out. This film, on the other hand, I'll just come out and say that I also went into this film with, like, even with being pleasantly surprised by the first film, this film, in comparison, for one, it just didn't look as good visually, and so I kind of went into this one being like, okay, yeah, I like the first one, but this one doesn't look like, I don't know, just going into this one, it felt like, okay, this is, even if I was surprised by the first one, I still went into this one with kind of low expectations, and sadly, in this case, this film, yeah, my expectations were not surpassed or anything, so yeah, we'll just get into it, starting off with the plot. The plot of the film is that basically, it honestly, like, it's not a great sequel because it doesn't really tie into I don't know if it's meant to be a sequel, but I think it's actually, there's supposed to be a show, there's supposed to be like a show of Spirit called, like, Spirit Riding Free, that I didn't see, but I don't think you need to see the show in order to be able to watch this film, so, yeah, it basically, you have Spirit from the original film, and he is in this, but Rain is not in this film at all, which seems weird, so I don't know, like, how canon this is to the original Spirit movie or anything, but yeah, Rain is not in this film. There's nothing really from the last film that's mentioned at all in this film, so, but basically the plot is that there is this girl, Lucky Prescott. She is a troublemaker, she's kind of wild and stuff. She ends up ruining her grandfather's campaign for mayor that he's trying to run for mayor, and yeah, Lucky, she's like causing problems for him, so he ends up sending her to live with her father. At the start of the movie, we actually see that her father and her mother specifically, she was a horse rider, and she got into an accident and ended up dying from it. And so because of that, like, her father was not in a state that he could really take care of her, so he sent her to live with her grandfather. And so now for the summer, she is going back with her aunt, aka her father's sister, and so they are at this, I forgot what it's called. It's called, like, I'm gonna see what it's called here, Spirit Untamed town, I guess. I don't really know what to look up for this. It was something with M. Muradero. Yeah, Muradero. So it takes place in Muradero, so they go there. So Lucky, she ends up going there for the summer, basically, and while she's there, she ends up kind of making some friends. These two other girls, Abigail and Prudence. Yeah, the other one's name is Prudence, and so they kind of become friends, and I keep thinking Spirit, not Spirit. Lucky, she ends up kind of taming Spirit, which does the Spirit. She ends up meeting Spirit initially while she's on the train to get to the town, but then she sees Spirit, but then Spirit later on ends up getting captured by this guy Hendrix. He runs like a bandit, like a group of bandits, basically doing bad things, and so yeah, so what happens after that? So basically, Spirit is captured by Hendrix and the rest of his gang. They're kind of trying to domesticate Spirit, I guess, like similar to, I guess, what the Colonel was doing in the original film, kind of just trying to break Spirit's spirit. And so Lucky, she's kind of meeting with Spirit in order to feed him apples and try to tame him herself, and it's honestly, it is kind of weird. The whole movie is called Spirit Untamed, but throughout the course of the film, Spirit does end up getting tamed by Lucky, and it does kind of contradict the whole thing with the last film, was that you had Little Creek, he did try to tame Spirit, but then even he couldn't, but only at the end, Spirit kind of let him ride on him so that they could escape and stuff, but then by the end, the film kind of ended with, like, Spirit being this, like, free spirit, basically. So instead of having this film kind of them going back on that and having the whole film, basically, you do have Spirit getting tamed. It does kind of go contrary to the title of the film, as well as, I guess, the whole kind of parts of the last. You could say, like, okay, the whole point of the last film was that Spirit grows to trust humans, I guess, but at the start of this film, he still doesn't really trust Lucky, which makes sense, but then he does end up getting tamed throughout the film, so it just feels like a weird contradiction with the nature of, like, the film and the nature of like the title of the film as well as like the last film and what this film actually is. So anyway, so what ends up happening is that the bandits, Hendrix and the rest of the bandits, they end up kidnapping Spirit along with the rest of Spirit's gang of horses and stuff, the herd, and so then the rest of the film becomes Lucky, Prudence, and Abigail. They together, they manage to free Spirit. They do, right? Yeah. What is it? How does, I'm trying to remember how Spirit, I just watched this film and somehow I already forgot this, but Spirit ended up, they end up going to save the rest of the horses, but okay, so I think I remember that initially Spirit didn't end up getting captured, the rest of the herd ended up getting captured, and so yeah, Prudence, Lucky, and Abigail, they go on a mission in order to save the rest of the herd of horses, so they have to like beat the train of bandits with the horses by cutting through a mountain, a dangerous mountain basically, so they go there, they end up at this water refill area where they go try to attempt to save all the horses, but they fail to do so, and Spirit ends up getting captured in the process, and then from there, the final third act of the film is going on. Throughout all this, by the way, you have Spirit, there's this side plot where basically Lucky's father ends up, he is not close with Lucky, and because he feels bad, like he wasn't there, he's too overprotective basically after the whole incident that happened with Lucky's mother, and so, and yeah, that's just going on in the background. Eventually, Lucky's father as well as Prudence's father, Al Granger, that's his name, so they end up, them and Lucky's aunt, honestly for some reason the names in this movie, it's like hard for me to remember, but so they all together, they're like going on a train trying to help save the girls, and meanwhile the girls, Spirit ends up getting captured, so but they don't give up, they end up going to where the bandits are hauling the herd of horses onto a boat that is going to be shipped off and sold, and then from there, the final confrontation happens, they manage to end up freeing Spirit, they manage to also, skip ahead, they fight the bandits, they win, they free the horses and stuff, and yeah, that's where the film ends, kind of, and that's not actually where the film ends, there's still another like 15 minutes, and so, yeah, that they say basically Lucky ends up saying goodbye to Spirit, but then she does end up deciding that she does want to stay in the town of whatever it was called, I don't remember, let me see here, just gonna remind myself, Muradero, yeah, I don't know why, all the names in this film, I don't know why, like, it's not that late, it's only 1:40, okay, it's 1:40 in the morning, but still, I'm not that tired, so I don't think this is an issue with me, it's just, maybe it is, maybe I'm reviewing this at too late of an hour, but I don't know, the names in this film for some reason are really hard for me to remember, but anyway, so, yeah, so Lucky decides that she wants to stay in Muradero, and that is basically where the film ends, and the final shot is like Spirit kind of running free, I guess untamed, even though it kind of goes contrary to, I guess, the whole film where Lucky ends up taming Spirit, I guess. So anyway, the plot of the film, I'm going to give, honestly, a 1 out of 5. This, I didn't really, yeah, I hated this plot, I would say. Again, with the plot, I am trying to be harsher with the plots, like, just to give a bit of variety with the plots, I guess, but yeah, I didn't like this plot. It was pretty boring the entire way through, to be honest. I don't think that, like, the first film, I also didn't really like the plot. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5, but even that, like, it had for all of the faults of the plot that I just didn't really like that much. At least there was, like, some tension there, which I did appreciate, where it did feel like at times, like, okay, Spirit's captured, Little Creek is captured, they're kind of like, there's some action going on with, like, the soldiers that are fighting the tribe members and stuff, so there was a bit more, like, tension that I felt like, okay, kind of intriguing. This film, it just doesn't feel that tense at all. It doesn't, the bandits, they don't really feel like a threat at any point. They don't have, like, guns or anything that the colonel or the soldiers had in the last film, so, yeah, I found pretty much the whole plot of this film, like, pretty boring, I would say, so, yeah. In terms of the characters, Lucky's fine, Prudence, I don't care for, Abigail, I don't really care for either, Lucky's father, her grandfather, her aunts, all of them I don't care for at all. Snips is just the brother of Abigail, don't care for him. Hendrix was alright, apparently he's voiced by Walton Goggins, didn't realize that, but Hendrix was not the best, really, my favorite character was probably Prudence's father, Al, he was like the kind of the friend of Lucky's father, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he was like the town sheriff or something like that, so he was probably my favorite character. And so, yeah, but overall the characters, I'm going to have to get the score sheet out for this, I don't really look. Oh, and there's also obviously Spirit himself, who does not feel as good as the last film. Like in the last film, at least, you had like Matt Damon kind of narrating his thoughts and stuff, which I did think helped, and the character just felt a lot more, I don't know, just interesting in the struggle that he was facing, where this film, it's way more, it's not even a Spirit film, this film feels more of a Lucky film, like we're following the adventure of Lucky, where in the last film, it felt like we were actually following the adventure of Spirit, I would say. So yeah, I have to give the characters probably, I would go like a I'll go a 3 out of 10. I'm gonna say really bad. I would say for the characters, I did not. Yeah, really bad. I would say. In terms of the settings, I do think that probably the last film it had I would say a better art style, but here I'll kind of talk about the settings and art style interchangeably with this part. So I think that the last film it had a better art style but worse settings, and I think that this film probably has better settings but a worse art style. I did actually like the settings. It does look pretty nice with like the mountain areas and stuff near the village, as well as I guess. Yeah, honestly that's pretty much it. But even so, there were some nice settings. So I do kind of wish that I like the settings of this film kind of a bit better than the last film, but I do think it's brought down by the art style. Just kind of this, they go with like a 3D animation, which I think that the 2D looked a lot better in the 2D. It wasn't anything special in the original film, but even so, it was even the original film. It had like some CG animation, not animation, but it had some like CG visuals, I think. So yeah, I don't think that's so. I don't really know what to give. I would give probably the settings. I would give probably I'll go like a 5.5. I'll say that they were decent settings, but not great. And in terms of the art style, I would say that the art style was, I don't like this art style at all. It looks like, I don't know, it doesn't even look like DreamWorks, to be honest. It looks like Disney. It looks like a Disney Junior kind of television show, and I don't really like those kind of art styles. And so I'm going to give the art style probably, let's go negative territory here. Let's see here. Yeah, the art style is, I'm going to go pretty bad. I'm going to go like a 3.5. I did not like it. And honestly, even that's being kind of generous, but I'll be generous, I guess. In terms of the worst thing is, I'm just going to reuse the worst score, which was the plot. So just another 1 out of 5 for the plot, I would say. And in terms of the best thing was probably just like Prudence's father, Al Granger. I thought that he was probably my favorite character. He had like, the one good bit in the movie is, I think, just any time that he would talk with Lucky's father. I thought that there was like, I think one good joke, maybe something like that, where it's like he goes to tell Lucky's father that Lucky and the girls, like they went off on their own, like to do something reckless. And so I thought that was like a scene that I thought was decent. So yeah, but even that, I would just give him like a 5.5, probably his character and just like the scenes that he was in. So not even the best for him. So yeah, any extra notes I have here? Let's see here. I already mentioned that I don't know like what Rain is apparently not in this film, and if this is meant to be a sequel, then it's not a good sequel in that case. So, and yeah, I did mention how it's like I do find it kind of conflicting, where it's like it's called Spirit Untamed, and yet the entire film Spirit is kind of being tamed, and so and even in the last film, it's like there was such an emphasis on Spirit not letting anyone ride him, and then only at the end it's like he lets Little Creek ride him, and it's not like to domesticate him; it's just to like help him escape. And then in this film, it's like just throughout the course, like in the first half hour, I guess, like, there is still like hesitation with Spirit letting Lucky ride him, but it is still kind of, I don't know, by like halfway through the film, it's like their Spirit is fine with Lucky riding him, and it does feel like, okay, Lucky does pretty much tame Spirit throughout the course of the film. So yeah, anyway, that is all the extra notes I had, so I'm going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. Alright, so it ends up coming out to about a 3.5, which would be pretty bad if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, pretty bad. Okay, a 3.5 would be pretty bad, and I think that's probably where I would give it. Yeah, this was honestly a pretty bad film. I went into it with like, I went into it being like, okay, I was pleasantly surprised by the first film, I guess, like to, whatever extent you would say that, a 5, I give the first film a 5.5, I thought it was decent, so, and I was expecting it to be a negative territory, so I went into this film like kind of, part of me, most of it me was like, okay, I don't think that, even with me being surprised with the first film, I don't think this film is going to meet my level of, I don't think I'm going to be surprised by this film, probably just based on how it looks. And yeah, I wasn't, shame that couldn't be the case, but I guess it just wasn't the case. So yeah, honestly, it's probably just not a film for me. Honestly, this is probably towards a more younger audience, I would say, probably. And maybe I'm just not a horse fan, so if maybe horse fans probably enjoy this more than I did. So, but yeah, that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. With that said, that is pretty much all there is to it, so let's leave it at that.